Hello, everybody, and welcome to the McRADcast. Today, Josh is back with us
Hey.
after his one episode hiatus. And we're joined today by Josh's brother, Barrett. Barrett, how's it going, buddy?
It's going great. How are y'all?
Doing good, man.
Good.
So, we wanted to get you in here because, for a few reasons, but I think you got some, you probably got some pretty cool or crazy stories with some of the lines of work you've been in. And before we get into that, I might be misremembering this, but I think I'm not. I don't think I am. How do you say that? Anyway, I think did we work together at Walmart a long time ago?
We did.
Was that a thing?
Yeah. Push carts when I was 16 years old. Yeah, absolutely. First job.
I don't think that we knew each other really at that point, and that would have been even before I knew Josh, because I was, I was like 19, maybe 20.
Yeah,
and
sounds about right.
18 or 19, maybe, because it was right after high school for me, and I don't think I had met you guys yet. But anyway, I just randomly remembered that today when I got up. I was like, dude, I think we worked at Walmart together. Long fucking time, 20 plus years ago. But anyway, we were kind of talking about before we started recording that you recently kind of changed. I don't know recently, but you changed kind of your job. But for a long time, you were in dispatch for 911.
Yeah,
correct.
Metro Nashville. I was a 911 dispatcher for 10 years.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, and Metro Nashville can get a little crazy sometimes.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
And you were kind of you did a lot of events, right? Mobile.
I did. We did. I did all the planning for all the major events, as far as like New Year's Eve, July 4th. Did all the planning for the NFL draft. I think I ended up working about 40 hours of overtime that week. It was insanity.
So what is the role for? Because I'm completely ignorant to this whole thing. Like, what's the role for that in that context? Like, what do you guys have to kind of do?
In that context, basically what we do is I would plan all the communication setup. So all the radio channels that the fire department, police department, EMS are going to use, we supply the dispatchers for that. And each large event is treated like its own individual, almost like center. So it takes it off of the dispatch center and puts it on these specially trained dispatchers.
I got you.
To dispatch these out in the field.
So and for those events, so you guys were just kind of running communications just for that single thing, right? So
yeah,
there's still the dispatch center for normal 911 calls and all that good stuff. But,
right. We would break it off just to kind of take all that we were getting, especially with the draft. I think they said there was 400,000 people in town for the draft or something like that. And so we want to take all of that and break it off so that the center's not being overloaded with that event. And we can take it and separate it out, and we can work it individually from what's happening on the center.
Sure.
Well, so.
Yeah, it's to that point, me and a few other guys used to go to Gen Con every year, which is a big game convention in Indianapolis. And it's a really big. I mean, it's a, I don't know exactly, but it's, not that, it's not 400,000 people, but it's like 30 to 50,000.
Right.
And I know that's a giant gap, but I can't remember the number exactly. But I kind of thought that when we were there. I was like, man, this is like a big bump to the population to one area.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
right,
50,000's not, when you're talking about a big city, doesn't seem that big, but when it's like all of them are in one spot, that's a thing,
Yeah, it's kind of like the whole Sturgis thing. That is like literally on no one to 100,000 people.
Sure.
Like literally overnight.
So I guess I never thought about that you need. Yeah,
it needs its own call center basically.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Right, and it's a lot. I think a lot of people don't think about all that behind the scenes stuff. You see the police officers, you see the firefighters, but you don't think about the fact that you got to have communications for all those guys that are separate from everybody else.
Yeah.
And so it's a whole. It took me about a month of planning with the fire department, the police department, just to get all that set up.
Sure.
To figure out how we're going to accommodate all these needs, and on top of that, the NFL is bringing their guys in too to plan their side of it too, because they've got their own whole security contingency that's there as well.
Yeah. And is there any kind of, I'm completely ignorant to it, so is there any kind of is there any kind of logistical issue with like those guys are going to be on radios too, and so there's not any cross?
Well, they actually have their own separate channels.
Okay.
That they use for special events, or you could use them for mass catastrophes, something like that. You can take that whole set of channels and just completely break off that event to where it's not on your main channels for your city at all.
Okay.
So it's like they've got them programmed into their radios. They're all off-duty guys, so they're not pulling any on-duty officers. They're just paying them all overtime to come in and work.
Okay. It was so did with those events, and I know the draft was that the biggest one.
That's the biggest one Nashville's ever seen.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I know I had
far.
some people that I know that went, and it was just, they sent pictures. And I was like, oh my, and seeing the footage, I was like, golly, man, that's a lot of people.
It's a chunk, and Nashville's always pretty busy to begin with, and then you add that on top of it. It's just they said there were a bunch of stories about it's become like the bridesmaid party, what do they call it, bachelorette party, capital of the world.
Oh wow!
And then all of a sudden, all these women had planned their fucking bachelorette parties that weekend, not knowing that the draft, because they don't keep up with it, and so they were like, "What is all this sausage fest going on here?" With this, and there were literally 400,000 bros there over the weekend.
They're like, ladies. Yeah.
Could you imagine being those women?
So, yeah. So I didn't think about that, but.
Not to mention no hotel rooms anywhere.
Right. Oh, yeah. But the few times that I've been to Nashville in the last whenever, I don't go much, but it does seem like at night it's like tons of...
Oh, a bunch of woo girls everywhere. Woo!
Yeah. And it's always like where's Kelly?
Yeah.
Where's Kelly?
I've talked to those people on the phone many times.
Someone's
lost our friend.
Someone find Kelly.
I think my favorite time was Halloween because the descriptions were the best ever. Like, I lost my best friend. Okay, what's she look like? Oh, she's dressed like a Ninja Turtle.
But slutty.
Right. Yeah. Like, what's happening?
Her titties is out, but they're green.
What are we doing?
Yeah. That's good. So, was there anything crazy out of the draft? Was there any craziness that happened, or any?
Actually, they had so much down there that it went super smooth.
Yeah, the NFL. You were telling me about how the NFL is on it, like crazy on it. Like
they bring they bring all their own equipment down there. Mm-hmm. It was crazy, and we knew it was going to be crazy on that first day. When you could literally we had the cameras out there, and you could see people stacked from the river, all the way to 8th Avenue on Broadway, which is a ton of people. I mean, and stacked all the way up, back to back, all the way in there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is way bigger than we thought it was going to be.
Okay, right on. So to that point, is there did that happen a lot as far as you plan it and then it's way more overwhelming, or was it just in that? I mean, that's just kind of, I guess, you can predict a little bit, but you don't know.
And for us, to be honest with you, just almost part of the job is you always think worst case scenario.
Sure.
I still do it. Even though I don't work in that, I'm always like, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen and how can I plan for that?
It's almost it's kind of that you got to take that mentality of
plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Hope for the best, expect the worst.
Yeah. So, what's my contingency if A, B, and C happen? All that's in the plan.
Running the football games and stuff was probably pretty easy. Over, you know what I mean? Because once you do that so many times, you just expect to have kind of a groove that you get in.
A lot of that, yeah. With the games, we did them so much that it was just you get to where it's almost like copy paste. You've done it so much. You deal with that type of crowd so much. Where we would run into the issues is the bigger stuff, like July 4th, New Year's Eve, where you've got 100,000, 200,000, 250,000 people crammed into downtown. That's where you're like, okay, now we got to make sure we've got everything lined up and we know what we're doing.
Yeah,
that way.
I've only been to a few of the Titans games, and one of the times I went, me and my buddy accidentally had a pocket knife on us as we were we were halfway from our car to the stadium. It takes forever to get from anywhere to anywhere. And we were like, shit. So I remembered that my good old brother was working the event, and so I just texted him. I was like, hey, is there any way I could drop this knife off with you and you hold it?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah. So I just went to the command van to drop it off.
I've had to throw away a knife before.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I'd say that's usually what it's like. Just throw it in the garbage, man.
Yeah. Well,
unless it's expensive.
Sure. Well, this one wasn't crazy expensive. It was still it was a knife I liked. but because being, I don't know if it's a Southern thing or if it's just it depends on, I guess, how you were raised or whatever. But my granddad always told me,
always keep a pocket knife.
a man always has a pocket knife and always has a handkerchief, or bandana of some sort, So I always have those things on me all the time. Like I had to go to the courthouse not the other day, but in the recent past here, and I didn't know now at the courthouse here in Jackson, like you got to walk through a whole
security
metal detector and all this, and I was like, oh. So I had to go back out to my car and drop all my stuff off because I was like, he's like, you can't have that. And in my mind, I'm like, it's just a thing I have. Like, it's a tool, I don't know. But, yeah, I guess you could, at those events, so you could probably like collect a bunch of knives if you were working the thing. You're like, I'll hold on to it.
Man, I'm sure they had so much stuff. I know the Lost and Found was like overflowing, man. It was crazy.
Yep. So did anything like wild pop off at the draft? Was there any like?
Not anything too crazy. I know we had one of the guys that was in the draft who apparently got a little too intoxicated, started busting windows out of a bar.
Oh,
but I don't know specifically who it was. I just know.
Dang.
I just know he was like 21 and was out there just going a little crazy and got arrested.
That's the crazy part of that is they're literally handing these 21-year-olds millions of dollars.
Oh yeah.
And then they're like, oh, by the way, be responsible.
That's like the thing when people go like, I can't believe, and I'm like, I mean, he shouldn't. I mean, I'm not condoning it, but like, I don't know. Like if I just got drafted to an NFL team and was just like out boozing it up, like I don't know. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, you're 21, bro.
Yeah,
right.
Everybody does at least a couple of dumb things when they're 21, and that's without fame and without an excess of money, and you know what I mean. Like that's where it gets squirrely.
Yeah, I love when people say that though. I would never. I'm like, dude, if you had millions of dollars,
had that amount of money, you might.
Especially when you're that young. Like, you don't know what the hell you would do.
Yeah, you'd probably fuck it up. Let's be honest.
So. And
it's like people winning the lottery, and then the excess amount of people that win that much money just blow it immediately. And they just fail,
file bankruptcy and shit.
And you're like, do what now? Yeah. I would never. And you're like, all right, you might though.
The ghost is back.
Oh man, that door. We're gonna have to start bolting that bitch shut.
Hey, that one the other day, it was like, I guess it was night or whatever. It scared the shit out of me. We were just like, me and him were doing one of our just little review deals, or we were just talking about video games, I think. But we're sitting here talking, all of a sudden it was like, and I was just like, we're both just looking at it like,
waiting for the aftermath.
Yeah,
who's coming in?
Yep, so, but yeah, but you go from having literally no money to all the money.
Yeah,
it's not like a slight increase in income.
They don't ramp it up as you go
Yeah.
and be like, here, by the way, all right, now you finally have millions of dollars. They're like, by the way, $21 million.
They're like, you know how you've been poor your whole life? They're like, I'm like, yeah. They're like, here is $30 million. Like, I'm going to go smash a bar. Like, that's a weird way to celebrate, but I don't know.
I don't agree with that, but all right, man.
Yeah.
At least you got bail money, I guess.
Yeah. You're like, I can get out of this.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm not going to need a bondsman. I got this.
He just yells NFL, and they come rescue him.
Roger, what's his name? Was that the guy? Roger
Goodell. Yeah, Roger Goodell.
Yep. But before, so I don't know if it was for the training or whatever. Josh had mentioned at one point though there was a thing you did with like it was like a cadaver thing,
Yeah, that was I had an interesting college career too, so that was in college.
Okay, so how did you get into that? Kind of talk about that a little bit.
Let's just say when I first started college, I was super unsuccessful. So, but on my second attempt, got into MTSU with the help of a friend of mine, and got into anthropology.
Okay,
which is the study of humans. And not ants or bugs or whatever people like to ask me.
Yeah.
Or aunties.
Or aunties, right. But got into anthropology and got into the forensic side of anthropology and took some courses. Actually took a night class for forensic anthropology, and I was like, okay, this seems pretty cool. And so got pretty deep into that. Did a couple of courses and then got onto what was called the Forensic Anthropology Search and Recovery Team. And that's a team at MTSU, and they do skeletal recoveries for like crime scenes.
Okay.
And so it was fully volunteer. I mean, I think the only thing I ever got paid in was Gatorade But the TBI would call us out, and they would say, hey, we've got skeletal remains. We need you guys to come out. We document the scene, recover the bones.
So when you say, like I said, I'm ignorant to it too, but for people listening, so it's like you can't just go and just pick the stuff up. Like,
correct.
There's a protocol.
Absolutely. There's a lot of protocol.
Okay.
You basically, generally, a lot of our scenes, when people just like animals pass away, other animals come and take them away. And so you would have bones scattered over large areas, and you'd have to do what's called line searches. And so you'd have to be in brush as high as your head, next to the person next to you. It's kind of like when they search for people that are missing. You do line search, you take flags, you pin the flags, and then you actually map in where all the bones were located at. You would draw them in on a diagram, basically, and that would go in the court document as to this is where all these things were located. This is where the skull was. This is where the femur was. And then you would go out and then you collect them.
Okay.
And then you would take them into the medical examiner's office, and then you start the investigative process. And based on the bones, you can determine age, you can determine sex. There's a lot of different things. You can use their teeth to figure out. I know we actually had a couple of cases where they had hip replacements and stuff.
Oh, okay.
They had numbers on them. You can figure out by the number who that person is.
It's like a ID. Okay.
Right, yeah.
That's crazy. That's pretty smart.
Yeah, they have serial numbers on the hip replacement.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. Because I was reading something recently, and you obviously know way more than I do about this, but they were saying that they used to use dental records. And I guess they still do at some, in some capacity. But I was listening to somebody talk about how they're not as accurate sometimes as people it's not just oh, we got the dental records and we can just immediately do it. It's sometimes it's not. It doesn't line up that well, I guess.
Yeah, and a lot of that depends on how well they kept up with their dental care. That may not match up because
if it's several years old.
Sure, I gotcha. So if it's not current or something.
If it's been 15 years since they've been to the dentist, that may not work out too well for you.
Gotcha. Okay.
Obviously, if you got DNA and stuff, if you've got somebody that you think it may be, then you have something to compare it to. But if you just have no idea, then generally you got to take some other methods to kind of try to figure out what you're looking at.
Who's missing in that area, that sort of thing.
So, yeah, because I listen to a ton of podcasts, and I dabble in the true crime stuff. The problem is that the true crime genre of podcast is so saturated that it's sometimes you just you got to weed through the crap. So you just find a couple you like, and a lot of them are about they just re-examine not necessarily cold cases, but just older cases, and a lot of the stuff from as early as or as recent as the late 80s. A lot of the technology wasn't there yet to do full-blown DNA tests and stuff. So it's and I didn't realize how bad hair, they use finding hair, it's really not to identify someone
right, not as great as you think. Yeah,
so it's just one of those things that's well, we can look at patterns, but it's not. In our minds, we watch these CSI shows, and it's oh, you just get a hair and you found them. And that's not how that works at all.
Had that problem in 911 too. CSI was they're I called 911. Why do you not know where I'm at? And I'm like, because you're on a cell phone. I don't know where you're at all, actually. You got to tell me.
So I think people probably think it's just this whole thing, this command, when it is a command center essentially, but it's not the dialing in someone's location, and you know what I mean? So I think there's people, we tend to, we see the TV stuff, and it's way cooler than reality, I guess. So it's at the end of the day, while I think that what you did is interesting as hell, and I'm sure you have some crazy ass stories about calls, for the most part, it's it's I don't want to say more boring, but
it's mundane.
Yeah, it's not.
I bet 98% of your calls were mundane bullshit calls.
Absolutely, and I think that's a lot of what you have to. There's that balance, you gotta. I think a lot of it is you got to figure out why you're there, while you're doing it, and it's I would tell people, new people coming in, I'd be like, you're gonna have to filter through 90% bullshit to get to the 10% of people you're actually gonna help, and so it kind of you would have to find that balance. It's you're gonna go through a bunch of people who are drunk or don't know where they are, their phone dialed, or their kids playing with a cell phone that's been deactivated, which most people don't know that that's even a thing, but it is.
Oh, you can dial you can dial 911 from
Literally, any phone that's deactivated, if you put a charge in it, it can dial 911. So you deal a lot with that, but then you also deal with, hey, my significant other is not breathing and they need CPR, and so we're trained to give instructions over the phone until the paramedics get there. So that's the type of stuff you got to get to, but you got to weed through, like you said, you got to weed through the bull crap to get to the stuff where you're genuinely helping people. So
Well, you have to, and I mean, I think it takes a certain kind of person to do it and be successful at it, because, you know, while you do get the mundane, there's got to be that one call or whatever where it's like, not just like my significant other's not breathing, but like I'm in danger and the person who's putting me in danger is like here. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So when you get that call, it's like, you know, mentally, how do you deal with that? Like, you could potentially hear someone, you know,
oh, absolutely,
get hurt or killed. I don't know. To me, that's like a whole different thing. So
yeah, I've dealt with some pretty bad stuff, and a lot of times it was with trainees, and so then it's kind of like they're sitting there and you're telling them what to do, and then you get that call, which. A pretty recent one was we had one where it was pretty big in the news, and it was basically like a mass shooting style incident. Yeah, and somebody was pretty badly hurt, and we had somebody on the phone that was inside. Yeah, and so at that point, your trainee's looking at you, and you're basically like, because we work off a script for our medical and fire, but some of the stuff you can't script that, you know, when somebody's, you know, on the phone and they're hurt really bad and bleeding and you're trying to figure, your trainee's looking at you, and basically I'm like, we need to control bleeding. Just keep talking to them. Sometimes that's literally all you can do. It's just be that voice to say,
but
hey.
But the thing is that you have to have the mentality calm. To go, like, I have to be the strong person here, the voice of reason, all that stuff in that moment. So I don't know if have you ever had anybody like, after a call, I'll be like, I gotta take a moment.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And when I got promoted to supervisor shortly before I left, and I told my people all the time, I'm like, if you deal with something like that, the big ones were children. You know, if you've got kids and you take that call, that's bad news.
That's a tough one, dude.
It's not something you want to deal with.
For sure.
And so I would tell my people all the time, I'm like, look, if you got to get up to go take your 5 or 10 minutes to get yourself back together, do that.
Sure.
But I think a lot of it is, and another thing I would tell people is it's hard, but you can't get personally involved.
Sure.
You know, it's like
you've got to a degree of separation.
You got to have a line to where it's like, hey, I don't personally know these people. This is a tragedy that's happening, but I got to be the person to tell them what to do, because 2 people panicking is not going to help anyone.
Sure. And I feel like that can probably be perceived as like being cold, yes, you know, whatever, but it has to be that way.
Yeah.
Just like, I mean, I can't imagine, you know, being some of the first responders that show up to those places and, you know, actually see that stuff on a daily basis. Or not a daily basis, that's aggressive.
I've known some first responders, not a lot of them, but a few, and man, the stories they tell, and they joke about some really, really raw stuff that everybody else would think is completely inappropriate.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of how they cope with it.
Sure.
That's their coping mechanism, right?
I would be that guy, for sure.
I mean, you show up and there's a bloated dead body.
Yep.
How do you cope with that? You don't harp on it. You make a joke about it and you move on, right? And a lot of people would probably ream them up and down if they heard them tell those jokes.
Well, and it's just that is once again about it's not everyone can do it.
Yeah, that's how we did it too. It's kind of, you almost get that. I've never been in the military, so I can't really speak to it, but it's almost like when you're in the trenches with people and they understand what you're going through, that's almost the best way. You talk about it, you joke about it, because if you sit there and harp on it and think about it and focus on it, you're not going to be able to do your job.
Yeah,
sure.
It's a coping mechanism. Those off-putting jokes, those inappropriate jokes that most people would consider, it's not the same thing to them as it is to you.
And right? We've talked about that a ton, about how comedy is a response to tragedy.
Yes.
I mean, ultimately.
Yeah.
You know, we seek it out now. We can watch a stand-up or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's like, it's exactly what it is. It's like, well, I can let this eat me alive and go crazy, or I can, you know, make a off-color joke.
Harrowing joke. You know what I mean? It's like, oh no, he didn't do that just now, did he?
Yep.
But I was hanging out one time and they made I won't tell the joke or anything, but these guys made this really inappropriate joke and I was just like, oh no, what is that? And they were all standing around laughing and I was like, and then I realized, you know what I mean, later down the road I was like, that's what's happening there.
Sure.
Those guys are bonding over that terrible tragedy because they don't know how to cope with it any other way, right? You can't process what happened. That person was burned alive, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to think about that.
Yeah, no, not at all.
You know what I mean? That's a bad way to go, and they see it constantly.
Sure.
Right? I mean, not like every day or anything, but it's
part of it.
It's more common than anyone else would ever see because that's their line of work.
Yeah. So, and when I listen to some of these podcasts, sometimes they'll have like the 911 call from this case, and dude, that's so rough because you're like, especially when it's the person on the phone that died.
Yep.
And you're like, he's at the door, and you can hear, and you're like, this isn't a reenactment. This is them. Like this happened, and you're like, damn, dude. And someone had to take that call, right? So that person on that phone is like, man, I just heard someone die. Literally, just heard someone die. So definitely, I think.
And that is a low, but there are also highs when you save someone's life, right?
Absolutely.
And, I can remember when you got. Some lady was tagging you on Facebook or whatever.
Yeah,
because you helped save her husband. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was pretty recent, and that was probably one of the coolest things that I've experienced. She reached out to our the people that do our tape recordings and was like, "Hey, I want to get this recording of this call, and I also want to talk to the dispatcher who I spoke to." And funny thing, on her CPR call, I had a trainee that night too. And it was her first CPR call, and this lady her husband was not breathing, and they were all the way at the county line. I mean, I'm looking at the map, I'm like, oh my gosh, dude. And so trainee looks at me, and I'm like, okay, I just move her out of the way, because the way our headsets are set up, I have a link into their headset, and so I can just tell them to shut off their mic. I turn on my mic, jump in there, so that way there's no delay if something happens with the trainee or they freak out or something.
Because it just take over.
It happens.
Oh, yeah.
And so I told her, I was like, listen to what I do. I'm going to take over the call. I jumped in there. I'm like, started giving her instructions on how to give compressions. And she's like, where are the paramedics? I'm like, just keep doing the compressions because you're helping them until they get there. And that was kind of our go-to. You got to keep people going because if you give them something to do, they're not freaking out.
Yeah.
If they think, hey, we're actively doing what we need to do, they're not thinking about the fact that ambulance is not there. So we kept CPR going. Paramedics finally got there. And that was another thing about the job. You never know what happened. It's like the most open-ended. That's one of the worst parts. Like you could be sitting.
So after the call, it's like,
who knows?
It goes into the ether. They don't know the result.
No idea what happened.
I think that's probably like, that's kind of a double-edged sword there.
Good
it's
and bad, right?
Because in a way you're going like, well,
right.
Out of sight, out of mind, I guess, thing. But at the same time, I guess you get, You think about them. Yeah. Absolutely. I've got a top 10 list of horrible and good. I mean, it's in there forever. It ain't going nowhere. Yeah.
But, so they ended up taking him. They brought him back. And she got in touch with me like 2 years later. She's like, I've been trying to get in touch with you for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Brought her husband to the 911 center while I was at work. And I got to meet the guy whose life I helped save.
That's cool, man.
And it was one of the coolest moments of my career. I was like, this is crazy. And he's like, I just want to thank you because I'm here because you told my wife how to do CPR. And she kept me alive until the paramedics got there. And I'm like, this is a super, like, I don't even know how to. It was hard to react to because I'm like, this is so powerful that I don't even really comprehend.
That's an emotional
moment,
right? That's like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, I don't know if I would. Yeah, I don't know if I would know how to. I always worry about moments, like not specifically that moment, because I don't know that'll ever happen to me. But in moments where, like, it's that emotional, I'm always like, I'm gonna fuck this up. Yeah, I'm gonna like 100%. React to this terribly.
Yeah, right. Because if I'm not crying, I'm just going to be stoic, right? And so there's like no in between there. There's no like, oh, all right, this is awesome. It's just like,
and I just imagine the guy's like, man, I almost died. You saved me, and I'm like, man, that's crazy, man.
Exactly. Where do I go with this? I don't know.
You guys,
I'm glad
you guys want to go for a cheeseburger?
I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah, they brought me a cake, and I was like, thanks so much. But I'm like, I don't know what to.
Yeah. Do I have to eat this right now? What do I do? Yeah. I'm going to eat this entire cake.
Is there an appropriate way to react?
Just get a fork and start shoving cake in your gullet.
Pull a seat up, buddy. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. But no, that is cool, man. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Not many people get to say like,
I saved someone's life.
Yeah,
I helped save someone's life.
and what's cool is you coach someone through that. So it's like like this extra layer of like this fucking like.
Yeah, there's complexity to that.
Yeah,
right?
man, that's cool.
Because you not only are you helping to save someone's life, you're helping someone else to save someone's life.
Yeah,
in that
and
moment.
it's that whole thing, like you said, is like you have no emotional attachment to that person, but the person that you're talking to does, and it's like, all right, hey, get your shit together. You got to keep them in the zone, man.
Without saying that, yeah,
Sure.
But yes, it is. It's very like there was a strategy to it. You know, you had to keep them talking and keep them working. You had to do, even if it was a call where you knew there was nothing you could do, you would still, hey, go get towels, go do something,
right,
to make this.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, when they hear those 911 calls, they don't understand that the dispatcher is always for the most part, everyone I've ever heard is like they're very even keel.
Yes.
Like hey, stay on the phone, do the thing. And I think some people maybe mistake that for like
Heartlessness.
Yeah, but you have
yeah.
to be. You got to be in the zone, man.
I assure you, your heart is not what your voice is.
Exactly.
I can tell you that right now.
And that's what I was getting at. Is like, behind that, there's probably like, they're probably freaking out too.
Yeah.
Oh, he's at the fucking door, and you're like, hey, stay with me, fucking, we're gonna do this. Yeah. But inside, you're like, oh my God,
There's that thing in parenting too, where you have to pretend like you know what you're doing all the time.
It's funny too how when you get older, you realize everyone who was like, now that I'm, in my late 30s, it's like when I look back on people that were in their late 30s,
especially
when I was a kid,
your parents,
I'm like, they didn't know what the hell was going on either.
Yeah.
No, you fake it till you make it. For sure. For your whole life.
No one knows what's going on.
Yeah.
But everyone's like, I got this. You don't?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Fake it till you make it.
But yeah, there is that level of like, that's wild, because you got to just be like, all right, I'm gonna hear some crazy shit. I just got to be in the zone. Yeah, that's wild. And
like I said, there's tons of calls where you just never know what's going to be on the other end of the line, man. Phone picks up and they tell you something, and my reaction to crazy stuff, I don't know what it was, but I would just repeat back what they said to me just so I understand what you said.
Yeah.
I would tell them what they just told me, and they would be like, yep. I'm like, okay, let's go. Like
that's actually like if you watch anything about like being a good listener and being charismatic, that's part of it. It's like repeating things. Is the last thing the person said, like repeating back things.
I got you.
So it's kind of
it's like a confirmation.
Yeah. So
it did help, because they're like, okay, this person's listening to me, so we're good. I'm not gonna freak out.
was there like any amount of? I mean, I know there was, but how big of a deal was like prank calls to 911? Is that like? I mean, did you run into it much? Or?
Oh yeah, it happened, and that was another disconnected cell phone thing. They were like, we don't have any way to trace where that's coming from. You could call all day long on that disconnected cell phone, and unless we get a good ping location on it to where it's coming from, and even then, when they're disconnected, they don't do too good. But generally, it wasn't as huge of a deal as you would probably think. But they were super annoying. Like, kids get a hold of a disconnected cell phone. I mean, we would deal with, and we just document them, so that way when a real emergency happens, if we catch this person, we can say, hey, this dude called 911 49 times in a row to call me a bitch and then hang up.
Yeah.
So
watch this, guys.
See, and that's another thing. You don't realize how stupid you are as a child until you become an adult and realize in those important moments when you were doing stuff like what the fuck were we doing? Like calling a fucking Papa John's and saying some stupid shit. Not that big a deal. Annoying as piss. Yeah. But calling 911 is a much bigger deal, right? You're taking somebody who's got a fairly important job and bogging them down with ridiculousness.
Yeah. When we didn't have we did some prank calls when we were kids, but our thing was when we could all drive or whatever. We were all between 15 and 17 at the time. I look back on this, man. We were such shitheads.
Oh yeah.
And we would go to we would go to fast food restaurants and ultimately terrorize the people that work there.
Fucked up because they're like getting paid the least out of all the people in the world. But, you know what I mean?
And I look back on that and I'm like, damn it, Justin. Like,
wish I wouldn't have done that.
Because we would do. It's still kind of funny though. Some of the stuff we would go through.
Well, it doesn't make it not funny, but it makes it shitty. You know what I mean?
We would go through the McDonald's drive-through, and we would just do like dumb. Like we wouldn't even like talk shit or anything. We would just be like, yeah, let me get would start at normal. Let me get some chicken nuggets, a hamburger with cheese, and the lady would be like, all right, one cheeseburger. Like, well, a hamburger with cheese. She's like, yeah, cheeseburger. And you're like, yeah, but I want you to call it a hamburger with cheese. And she would, and then like you could hear the one hamburger with cheese. Then I'm like, and 2 cheeseburgers, and it was just, and then we would get the food. We would legitimately buy the food, and then we would go to Taco Bell. This is so dumb. I don't know. I still think it's hilarious. It's so dumb. We would go to Taco Bell with the cheeseburger from McDonald's and like walk up to the counter and be like, yeah, order this with no pickles. And they're like, sir, that's a cheeseburger. That's a cheeseburger. And we're like, yeah, just no pickles. And we're good. And you just own it, you know? And they're like, we don't sell cheeseburgers. You're like, look, I just wanted no pickles. If you can... I don't know what the issue is here. You know?
Try to trade it straight up for 2 tacos.
Yeah, the taco. Yeah, well, we never did. That'd be good. Barter for. Yeah. Hey, look, I got these cheeseburgers. Man. And then at the Taco Bell, there was also this gumball machine. And
if you got a certain color, you got a free drink.
The one we were at was like a white gumball thing, and so we were like, I think at the time, Mr. Bulky's was still open in the mall. So we just went and bought a shitload of white gumballs.
Oh, God.
And we would just go in there and have like 4 or 5 at a time. And they're like, they would give us tacos for a while. And then at some point, the manager's like, there's no way that you guys are. And we're like, oh, you got us. Like, we had our stash of white gumballs.
29 tacos later. You got us, bud.
So dumb. So, but yeah, we never prank called, especially like 911 or anything. And we were always kind of like, no. So yeah, if you're listening, don't prank call 911, guys. Save those calls for when you need it. But yeah, the prank calls were fun, but I don't know if it's still much of a thing, like with cell phones and stuff. I mean, I'm sure it is.
Everybody texts now, man. Nobody answers the phone anymore.
Prank text. I have done the thing where I tried to hit someone up, and it's been forever since I talked to them. And they didn't have the same number.
Oh boy!
And one time I was like, I don't remember what the deal.
New phone, who dis?
Yeah, I don't remember what the deal was, but it was I was going somewhere. I was going to Nashville or somewhere, and I was trying to get one of my buddies to come and hang out. They lived in Nashville, and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to this thing. You want to come hang out?" And they're like, "This isn't. Who is this?" And I'm like, "This is McCaskill." They're like, "Oh." I'm like, "Is this so and so?" They're like, "No." I was like, "Oh." Well, do you want to come to the, like, you know what I mean? I was like, just own it, you know. You want to hang out or what? Just trying to make friends.
Have you ever seen that one that goes around social media every now and then where the old lady and like her daughter had a baby or whatever, and she invited so and so to the cookout to celebrate that birth?
I saw that. That was awesome.
And then like this like, you know, rough and tumble black dude and this little old white lady, and she accidentally texted him, and then like she's like, "Oh, well, y'all can come too, I guess, if you want." And then like 4 black dudes just show up to this awesome party, and it's like this cool story about how they just showed up and had a good time, and
they're like it. They're like it every Thanksgiving now or something. I think I saw a follow up. They come over for like every Thanksgiving. That's awesome.
Like a little old grandma's.
We're
like,
out here trying to make friends, man.
Yeah.
You know?
And it worked out, man. Yeah. I like it.
But yeah,
story of success.
I was like, no. They're like, well, this isn't so and so. I'm like, well, hey, what are you doing next weekend? I don't know. Yeah.
I got an extra ticket.
But yeah, so you got any like funny calls that were like legit calls but ended up being funny? Or cause there's the one where the cop and his wife like smoked some weed or whatever.
Oh, the edibles.
That's it. Yeah, they're like, we're dying.
Yeah, the cops stole the edibles and made the edibles, and they're like, and they called 911 on themselves
because they thought they were dying. Yes, absolutely. I would say, I think one of my funnier ones, which I don't know if most people find it funny because I have a weird sense of humor now, but we had
we did too. So.
Okay, we had a domestic one night, and so this lady calls me, and she's like, the first thing she says as soon as the phone picks up, she's like, "Oh, I stabbed him," And I'm like, oh, who'd you stab? And she's like, I stabbed my boyfriend. I'm upstairs with my kid. My boyfriend's downstairs, and I can hear him downstairs on the other end of the phone. I can hear him yelling downstairs, oh, she stabbed me. And I'm like, oh, God. I'm sitting there thinking, like, worst case scenario.
Bitch
I'm like,
done stabbed me.
God. And so, and I was pretty new at that point. So I'm like, oh, God. So I'm like, all right. So first thing I'm thinking is, let's keep these people separated. If he's downstairs and she's upstairs, let's not have any more stabbing. So I'm like, you stay upstairs with the kid, and he's downstairs. Leave him down.
Don't stab the kid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, do not carry this over. Yeah.
So she's super mad at herself. You can tell. She's like, I've done messed up. I'm going to jail. You know, she's like, this went too far, and now I'm in trouble. So I hear him downstairs. He's like, oh, I'm bleeding. And I'm like, okay, well, how bad is he bleeding? And she's like, I stabbed him in the leg with some scissors. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, every time my heart beats, the blood shoots out of my leg. And I'm like, oh, God.
Oh, no.
So I'm like sitting here. I'm like, okay, what's a creative way that I can control this guy's bleeding until I get a paramedic there? So I tell her, I'm like, okay. I'm like, I need you to get a clean, dry cloth or towel, which is always, that was our instruction. Put it on the wound, press down firmly. Don't lift it up to look. I remember it. I'll never forget it. So I tell her, I'm like, get a clean, dry cloth or towel. I want you to throw it downstairs to him, and I want you to tell him to put firm, steady pressure on it. Don't lift it up to look. So she's yelling down the instructions to him, and that's incredible.
She's like, you know that thing underneath?
Yeah.
I'm trying to fix
Put
it.
the towel on it.
I'm
Press
trying to
it
make
down.
amends.
Yeah.
Press it down and don't lift it up till the paramedics get here. And so finally the paramedics get there, but that one was just like, I was like, what?
Yeah,
what do
yeah.
I do here? Like,
Yeah.
I got to do patient care, but she's already stabbed him once. Like, I know if she goes back down there, this is not going to get better. So
That's a good point, though, of like, sometimes you try to do like crazy shit, and then you immediately you're like, oh, I stabbed the person.
no,
you know what I
I'm
mean?
fucked
Like,
up.
so-
instantaneously, you could tell immediate regret. Like,
Yeah.
oh man, I shouldn't have done that. Like, I'm in so much trouble.
So don't lift it up to look at it. That's one of the instructions you said.
Yes.
And that's I have a little story about that, because I impaled my thumb, like, so if you, and I'll show you, but it's a scar here, like the knife went in here, came out here.
Oh, nice.
But I didn't know that happened, because when it hit, I just like threw the knife.
Oh no.
So I didn't know that it went all the way through there. I just knew tons of blood immediately. So I grabbed a paper towel and just like boom, held it on there. And I was like, I need to go to the emergency room. Got my buddy to drive me, and I was like,
That happened at the apartment.
it
right?
did, yeah. And I lifted the paper towel up, and when I did, the skin like came up, and I was like, huh. And I was like, nope. And yeah, I ended up having to go get stitches, obviously. But what was kind of cool, it's gross, but it was kind of cool to me, was so whenever you like stab all the way through, they have to do x-rays and stuff just to make sure you didn't clip anything or chip some bone, or make sure there's no debris or something, foreign objects, I guess. So they do that, and they're like, you're good, we'll stitch you up. And they gave me this shot. And so I don't know if you've ever gotten a shot in a knuckle, in a joint. It is awful. It is so bad. And I'm not afraid of shots. I'm not, whatever. I had to get a lot of them because I'm allergic to like poison ivy and stuff. I get it real bad. So as a kid playing outside, I was always getting shots because I had to do it. I was like, yeah, whatever, it's just a shot. And she's like, no, I'm letting you know. This is going to just kind of brace yourself. And she was cool. She was like, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just letting you know this is a
real fucking deal, son.
So, man, she stuck that needle in my knuckle, and man, I immediately hated her. I was like, I did that look. I was like,
How dare you, Brenda?
And so when she's pumping the stuff in there, so it's like, I guess part of it was to numb it.
Yeah.
But it was like swelling all that stuff was going in there, and the wound opened up, and I could see the layer of skin. I could see fat cells in between. And I don't have like a fat thumb. It's just a normal fat, Yeah. But, yeah, and I was like, that's kind of cool. Like, it was kind of cool looking at that point. But at that point, I'm like on this table, and they've got the cloth with just the hole in it. And like just my thumb is sticking out of it. But it's like getting all gnarly and swollen. And I could see that. And I was like, that is crazy. Like, But when I got there, I didn't even know I had stabbed all the way through my thumb. I thought I just cut it on the one spot. And I went, and I was like, hey, emergency room. I was like, hey, I did this thing. And they're like, okay, let's bandage it. And then, we'll call you back soon. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go smoke, because I smoked cigarettes at the time. And I was outside, and I kept seeing like blood running down my hand, but I was looking at I was lifting up the thing and looking at the wound, and there's no blood coming out of that. And I was like, what the hell? And I turned my hand over, and I was like, oh, there's a whole nother scenario over here.
I got a whole nother set of problems.
So I go back in. I'm like, hey, and she's like, did you do that? I was like, no, it was same. Just,
Sir, stop stabbing yourself.
yeah, and
Best we
What's
can
wrong
here.
with you?
God.
but that was that was a gnarly one, man. What sucked is like when you do something like that, it didn't hurt at the time, but man, when we got like back to the house and all that stuff wore off,
Ooh, boy. Ooh, boy.
Oh yeah, we know about stitches, don't we?
Oh, I would never.
Oh yeah, we know about that.
I've had
yeah.
them.
I've actually never had stitches.
Oh well, I have.
Oh
Yeah, because of you.
No, I would never. It's a pretty innocent story, actually.
Pretty good story.
You know the curtain rods that slide into the cheap white ones,
Old school metal.
Yes,
like those up there.
yeah, exactly like
Yeah.
those. They. I guess we found them in the house.
How is Westwood Gardens, bro?
Yeah,
we
over
probably
Westwood
just found
Gardens.
them outside.
Oh yeah.
And so we took the long end and had the curved end out in front of us, and we were literally right in front of our house where the woods were, because we lived right up next to the woods, and we were just like chopping at bushes for no reason, right? Well,
just being super aggressive. That's what we did.
Yeah, he's
Over-aggressive.
to my left, and I'm right-handed, so I'm swinging to my left, right?
Yeah.
And then I missed the bushes once and went right into his fucking leg, like lower leg, almost ankle area,
Yeah.
on the side. And I mean, it was literally like the shape of the inside of that rod or whatever, right? Just like, and then I pulled it out and went to do it, and he was like, ah! And I was like, what? And I immediately just went pale white. I had to be like the whitest thing ever. And I was Casper the Ghost. Because it was literally hanging off his leg.
Chunk, yeah.
A chunk hanging off his leg in the exact shape of the inside of that curtain rod. And I was like, ugh! Oh, no!
It's so gross.
Yeah. And so he's running in, and I, at this time, I was really young, and he was only 2 years older than me. So we were both pretty young. And so our mom works at a ER in Humboldt at the time. Well, she was a respiratory therapist at the hospital. She didn't work in the ER all the time, but she was on call all the time. And so... rather than go to Jackson General,
which was right down the road.
Yeah.
she knows it's a shit show there, so she's like, "Well, just go to Humboldt." And she's super calm because she sees crazy shit all the time, right?
Oh yeah.
So like, I'm like,
I hop in the house and I'm like afraid to step on my leg. I think he's cut the bottom of my leg off at this point.
and he's bleeding everywhere, right?
Everywhere.
And so Mama's not freaking out at all, right? And we're like, what the and I'm freaking out, and he's freaking out, and I literally asked my mom at one point, I can vividly remember, is he gonna die? I thought I'd literally killed my brother at that point. I was so ignorant,
Right. He's not gonna make it.
Yeah. But she was so gangster about it, dude. She just like wrapped his little leg up in a towel and put him in the front seat while I rode in the back seat, and we went to Humboldt.
It was super gangster.
30 minutes down the road, and
She just reinstalls chunk in my leg, puts a towel in there, and we drive all the
Reinstalls.
drive all the way to Humboldt.
Yeah.
And I had to get like 30 stitches in there. It was pretty awesome.
Right on.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm eating some cheese sticks from Sonic.
Yeah.
I forgot to.
This podcast brought to you by Sonic. We would like some money from you guys now.
Dude, I'd take Sonic money.
Oh, all day.
Yeah.
All day.
Just give me some. I don't know. Let me get a Route 44 every couple of days. I don't know. Whatever it takes.
Pay me in coupons.
But I've had stitches. Man, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times.
Yeah.
Back of the head.
That's a common one. Barrett got top of the head, right? He
top of the head.
Flipped his bike in Westwood Gardens.
Also Westwood Gardens.
And went into someone's paver stone or whatever. Top of the head.
I was in a lawn chair and I was like rocking back and forth and I was putting it on the back legs or whatever.
What your parents tell you not to do.
And then my cousin came by and like was messing with me, and when I fell back, it was like a big brick column outside my grandparents' house, and I just ran on the back of the head. Had that around my eye. I was there like 2 or 3 times. There's like, and you can see the scars if you look closely, but one time was like I was real young. Like I think it was like a after school or a daycare type thing, and we were running around this table, and I fell and hit the corner of the table. Another time was maybe just twice. No, when I was really way younger than that, my brother, who's like 9 years older than me, was pulling me in a wagon. This was probably Westwood Gardens.
One of those sweet radio flyers.
It was the red, and he was pulling me in the wagon, and it was my fault essentially because I stood up in the wagon while he was like running with it.
You lost your balance,
and
fell out.
Boop, and just bam. And then another time we were being shitheads at my uncle had this. He was like he did carpet, like whatever, he installed carpet, and he had this like. I guess it was his like shop, like he stored all the stuff.
Yeah,
but it had like a rec room. It was like his like man cave or whatever. It had like video. He had like an old video game machine in there and like a pool table and stuff. But we all went over there for something. It was like the parents and everybody. It was like a 4th of July or something. Anyway, we were being shitheads to the neighbors, and the dog was always an asshole to us.
Yeah.
So we chunked like a big old thing of fireworks like across the fence, and it like blew up, and the dog was like flipping out, and like the lights come on, so we all take off running. And I fell in this like gravel driveway and like just face first in the gravel. And I stood up and I was like, man, that was crazy. And everybody was like, your face is hanging off. Or whatever. It wasn't that bad. I was bleeding like profusely. And as soon as I was like,
that reminds me of the one time I did get injured. I mean, I've been very fortunate not to get injured in my life. I literally had like the tiniest little fracture of a wrist once, and they put it in a cast for no reason other than to like make my mom feel better about it.
That was also an amazing story.
Yeah,
he was running backwards.
I was running backwards and fell down. That's literally how I broke my wrist. It's the most boring story of all time. We were headed to Boy Scouts. I think I did Boy Scouts for like a year and a half, something like that.
But I did tell him, I'm like, you're gonna hurt yourself, and then bam, immediately. I was like,
Boy Scouts represent.
Yeah. But there's one time when we did move out to Three-Way where our neighbors were the exact same age as us. There was two kids, Cliff and Jared. Jared was my age. Cliff was Barrett's age. Me and Jared, their dad was like a foreman for an electrical company where they would literally like string up lines and stuff on the poles. And so he had to have, they got him a golf cart, like an old electric golf cart with like the center steer column. And he told us to go run the battery out so he could test how well the battery would do. Well, that's cool. We get to ride a golf cart around the neighborhood all day long.
Hell yeah.
So we're riding it, and there's this, the neighborhood we lived in is literally shaped like a pitchfork, right? The center road and then two roads that come off of it.
Right.
And the center road has this fairly significant hill right down the middle of it. And my buddy Jared's driving, and this is all his fault, obviously. And so he claims he hit a bump. I don't know if he was fucking around. It was so fast that I didn't know what happened.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, that center steer, when anything happens, if you're holding it and it jerks, you're just going to go whatever direction your hand makes you go. And so we veer to the right so hard. I mean, like 90-degree hard. Yeah. And so the road drops off aggressively right there in that moment.
Aggressively, he means a ditch.
Yeah.
A super deep ditch, like 10 foot deep, probably.
And so we go down the hill and flip end over end.
Oh, shit.
Right? Not like
Not
tumbleweed.
roll over sideways.
Like end over end. But here's the thing. We turned so hard to the right that Jared fell out of the golf cart.
Ejected.
He ejected to the left and got road burned so hard on his arm. And I rode it out, apparently. Not by choice, just because that's how it went down. And apparently I had banged my head on the windshield or whatever. Bang, one good time. Uh-huh. And then it fell over on its side, and I like stood up out of the golf cart. And so I'm all like, oh no, shock. And, Jared's over there like, are you okay? And running towards me, and I see his arm, and it's like a mess, right? And I'm all like, I think I am, but you're not, dude. And he's like, oh, shit. And so I go home, right? And he goes home.
Oh, man. Just go home.
Just leave the golf cart going home.
The best part is the old guy that lived in that house whose yard we fucked up. He was so anal about his yard. The one guy in the whole neighborhood who was super anal about his yard literally came outside and didn't go, are you guys okay? He literally looked at us and go, what'd y'all do to my yard? We were like, what the fuck, man?
Pretty sure we just died. I'm not sure.
The best part of this story is yet to come. So I'm walking. It's literally, I can see my house. It's literally across the street from where we just wrecked, right? Both of our houses are. And so I walk across the street to my house at Jared Limp's home. And and so we're doing and Barrett is outside fucking with the bushes. I don't know what he was doing. He was literally outside in front of the house.
I was walking out to walk around the house, and you walked around right at the exact
and
same
I'm holding
time.
my eye, and it's bleeding, right? It's like my eyebrow got cut, basically, and it was bleeding. And I was like, damn. He's like, what's wrong with you, dumbass? You know what I mean?
I think that's exactly what I said.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, we just wrecked the golf cart. I hurt my eye, I think. And he was like, shut up, that's Ketchup.
That's exactly what I said.
This is the thing we kind of talked about, I think, with Chad and Colby or somebody. When you're like, when you injure yourself, but you try to act like you're not injured. I don't know why that's so funny to me, but it's hilarious.
I mean, you're like literally in shock, right? You're like, oh, I don't know. And so, and he like literally accused me of faking it. He was like, that's Ketchup, dude. That's not real blood. And I was like, all right, man. And so I went in and was like looking in the mirror to try and figure out where I was bleeding from. And he's like ignoring me and shit and walking around. And so Jared literally got it way worse than I did, right? I may have had like a slight concussion and literally just had like a small cut over my eye. Mm-hmm. And so it was bleeding down my face. And so it looked way worse than it was.
Right.
But Jared like had like bad road rash all over his arm and his side and all this shit. And so, but his mom was like a former nurse, right? And so she's home at the time, and his dad's out there fucking trying to get the golf cart up. And he's cussing and pissed off at both of us, right? And I was just...
It's his golf cart.
Yes. It's actually his work golf cart, right?
Mind you, before that happened, we knocked our mailbox. That golf cart was like the most destructive thing in the world.
Robert Kinnear was driving it and backed, trying to hit somebody with it.
Knocked our mailbox
He was
over.
trying to hit somebody with the golf cart and ran into our mailbox and knocked it over. So, anyway, as I'm doing the thing, I'm like, oh, damn, Barrett's ignoring me. Cliff and...
Hold on. The reason I'm laughing sort of this is because in my mind, you guys were just like... you crashed the golf cart. And then you're like, all right, I'm going home. Like, no one said anything about it. The old guy's like, what the fuck happened to my yard? And you're like, I'm going home, man.
We left the golf cart. We left the golf cart sitting in his yard on its side.
It's just such the whole thing is so bizarre. You're like, we totaled the golf cart, but I gotta go home. I can't deal with this right now. Oh man!
And so Jared's mom like half-ass bandages him up, and then she comes because my mom's at work, right? And so Jared told her, I think he hit his head or something. So she's freaking out, right? Oh my God, there's this kid at home by himself with a fucking concussion and he's dying from a head wound, right? So she comes like running into my house like, oh my God, are you okay? Let me check it out. And so she kind of bandages me up. Meanwhile, Jared's like halfway dead at his own house where his mom just abandoned him.
Oh man, it would only be better if like right at this point in the story if the golf cart was just like on fire, just burning in a ditch.
It actually, I think the golf cart came out mostly unscathed.
And when people were like, dude, what happened? You're like, well, I don't even know what you mean. Your eyes hanging out. Something about the getting injured and trying to play it off thing is it's so funny to me.
Or just ignoring it happened altogether. Yeah. Like, you know what? I'm just going to go.
Yeah. But the thing I remember the most about that story is my brother. You know, he's supposed to have your back, homie. And like literally I walked around the corner, I was holding my right eye. And he literally was like, what's wrong with you, dumbass? And I was like, what? I just hit my head. We wrecked the golf cart. And he's like, all right, whatever. That's just Ketchup. Shut up, dude. And I was like, what the fuck?
You thought he was just fucking with you?
Just lying, bro. Like, that's all we do. We just lie to each other all the time. It's like the bigger the lie, the stupider the lie.
Yeah.
It's like, so I'm like, you're not getting me, bro. Not this time. And I'm sure their mom busted in there. And I'm like, oh, you're for real. Okay. You're not lying, bro.
Oh, man. So you didn't have to have stitches, though? Or
no stitches or anything. I think I've needed stitches in a couple of situations. I just ignored it, and they healed up anyway.
Well, when I was talking about when we threw the fireworks and then I fell in that gravel, like, dude, the way I was bleeding, it was like, Holy shit! And then it was literally like 2 stitches.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it was just a
head
tiny
wounds, man. They bleed a lot, dude.
Yeah, especially anything in
Yeah, and that thin skin forehead area.
Well, that's why like a lot of wrestlers apparently used to like they would have little razor blades or something, and like they would just nick their head.
Yeah, and then when they make contact, it looked way more impressive.
And it would look like they were like, oh shit, but it was really just like a little bitty, like
tiny head wound.
Oh man. I don't know. That's just I don't know what it is about the whole like I'm good, I'm fine, I'm good.
I'm fine.
You're like, bro.
I've got another one of those I'm fine stories, like, and it's not as impressive, but I was at work, right? I was at my former work at the time, and we had these flatbed trucks with these big 300-gallon liquid containers on them. Where, you'd fill them up. You climb on the back of those trucks, and you put a big ass 2-inch hose down in it. It kicks on, squirting every fucking where. You fill up, and then there's a trailer attached to the back of that truck, right? And you know how a standard trailer works. It's got that handle that you spin around and the jack of the to jack it up to get it off of the truck. Well, I went to step down off the back of that onto the dovetail of the trailer, and I slipped. And it's like the worst slip of all time. I don't know. I'm so uncoordinated, I guess, that I literally spun around 180 degrees and fell flat back on the trailer jack, like to the center of my spine in my lower back, and I like literally to the point where I was balanced perfectly on the jack, right,
just spinning around.
Like there was one dude in the bay with me, the fill-up bay, and he was like, you could see the sheer panic on his face.
This dude just impaled himself.
Did you do the like I'm good fun? And you weren't fun,
dude.
I was in there and I was like, Ketchup, shut up.
No, I did it. So, I couldn't breathe. Right? I was like, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Oh man!
And the guy literally was like, "You are not fine," and I was like, "I'm fine." And so I went in to tell my boss at the time. I was like, "Hey man, this just happened. I was just, I'm fine. I'm fucking fine. I'm going out to spray some yards. These yards are important. I got to go spray them.
I'm gonna duct tape my spine back together.
And
we'll
so,
be fine."
And so, my boss, the owner at the time, was like, "Dude, you have to go to the. I would feel much better if you went to the doctor." And I'm like, no, I'm fine, dude. I'm fucking fine. But when it happened, the moment it happened, I was just like,
So from now on, anytime that ever happens to me, not that particular thing, but if I ever get hurt and I have to do the play it off thing, I'm just going to start saying, it's just ketchup, bro.
It's just ketchup.
They're like, dude,
what's wrong with you?
Are you okay? It's just ketchup.
What'd you do, dumbass?
Yeah. Like, I drove to my first stop that day and was just like, I am not fine. I am not fucking fine. My back hurts a lot, bro. And so, like, I drove back to the shop and was like, I think I need to go to the doctor. I'm sorry that I said I was fine.
I was just kidding.
And so I get to the doctor.
It's not just ketchup.
I went to the doctor.
It's my spine.
I'm thinking, man, I didn't chip my spine or some shit, This shit hurts, bro.
I like how you still minimize it. It's probably just a chip. It's fine.
Yeah, just put it back in there. I don't know.
And so I get in there and I'm like at some clinic. And walk-in clinic or whatever, and you got to pee in the cup or whatever, and do all that stuff, because it's workman's comp. And so I peed in the cup and did the thing, and then the doctor walks in. This lady doctor walks in, and she literally was like, "All right, we hurt our back today," and I was like, "Yep, hurt my back." And she's like, "All right, let me look at it." And so she makes me stand up, and she lifts my shirt up, the back of my shirt, and she's like, "Oh my God!" And I was like, "Please don't do that."
I need some professionalism here.
And so I was like, please don't do that. And she was like, well, I'm going to get some x-rays just to see what's going on back there. And I was like, all right.
Your back is broken for sure. But we're going to confirm it.
And so, I go take the x-rays and do the thing. And she, comes back. She's like, no, everything's fine. I'm going to write you a prescription for hydros or whatever, hydrocodone, and it's going to spasm for a while. And I was like, I don't really, it hurts, but it doesn't hurt that bad, lady. I was literally just worried that something might be broken or wrong back there. I was like, once you tell me that I'm fine, I really am fine. It's just going to hurt for a minute.
Sure.
And she's like, well, it could spasm up to a week and this and that. And I was like, it'll be all right, probably, And she's like, all right, well, I'm going to write you that. And I was like, I don't need those hydrocodones, I could get in trouble with those. Who knows, I've heard some bad stories. She was like, dude, what? And I was like, Tylenol, ibuprofen stacked together would be all right. And she's like, what the? Like, confused. She was like, I have been doing this a minute, and I have never had someone turn down a prescription of hydrocodone. The first time in my career. And I was like, okay. I don't know what to tell you about that. But turns out my back was fine. It just hurt literally for 3 months after that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's aggressive.
Yeah.
So, talking about getting the wind knocked out of you, have you ever seen that video of the lady stomping grapes? Jesus Christ.
Have you seen Have you seen Ryan Hamilton's bit about that? Oh man, Ryan Hamilton has a special on Netflix that everyone should go watch. He's a comedian. He looks so goofy. He looks like the Good Humor Man, and he makes fun of himself about that very early on.
Yeah.
But there is a bit that he nails, the voice and the way you speak when you get the wind knocked out of you and everything as a kid. And I implore everyone, go on Netflix, look up Ryan Hamilton Happy Face. It is a brilliant bit where he explains, when you're a kid and you just riding your bike and then you fall and you knock the wind out. He's like, he's like, could you imagine when you're an adult and doing that and you're like, and you call 911 and you're like, help me, and then like a few seconds later you catch your breath and you're like, nope, wait, I'm fine. Everything's fine. Actually, it turns out
it's just ketchup.
Yeah. Definitely gonna die.
So that video though, every time makes me die.
She makes the craziest noise like she's possessed by a demon or something.
At the same time, I get it. Because she starts saying, stop. But there's nothing to stop.
You just gotta wait that shit out, man.
Sometimes you just gotta talk it out, You just gotta keep talking and make sure you're still alive.
My favorite part of it is like, for the thing they're mic'd up, so it's like, and it's not like a boom mic, it's like a lavalier mic, and so it's like on her, and she's like, stop.
She like disappears from the camera basically because she falls backwards, doesn't she?
Yeah, no, she falls straight forward, and but the crazy thing is the lady that's up there with her,
just like staring at her.
And then it cuts to the studio, and they're like, "Oh my, she's injured or whatever." And you're like, they're trying to be professional. As soon as they went to commercial, they were like, "That dumb bitch" or whatever. Oh man, because dude, if you've never had the wind knocked out of you, it's aggressive, man. Like, it
feels like you're dying.
Yeah,
it feels like you're dying.
It's like, well, this is the last breath I'm ever going to take. It's been a good run.
Yeah. And Ryan Hamilton does that in the bit. He's like, "This is our Vietnam, brother."
My brother, when we were kids, we were playing baseball, and it was like the whole family's out there, or whatever. I say the whole family. I don't remember who all was there, but I know my dad, my brother, and like my sister maybe, and some cousins, whatever. And I was pitching the ball, and we were just like, underhand tossing, and he rips a fucking line right into my midsection.
Right into the solar plexus.
Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I'm like 7 years old, so he's like 15 or 16.
Off of an aluminum bat, probably.
Yeah.
You're just like,
and I went, hey. And dude, in that moment, I was the lady. I was like, and you panic so hard and make it that much worse because no matter how much you want to take a breath, you can't.
Not coming.
It's like when you're crying when a kid, and when you're a kid so hard and you can't catch your breath.
So I get it, but yeah, that lady stomping the grapes, man. Holy crap!
Every time.
Anytime you lose that breath, man, it's like, I'll never forget. I did on a swing. It's like, I was like, I'm jumping off this swing. It's gonna be so awesome. And nailed it. Boom! Flat on my back. I'm looking at the sky and I'm like, well, this is where it ends right here. Like, I
Had a
guess
good run,
I'm gonna die.
This is how it ends. Oh man, it's so good. Also, have you ever seen that video of the? I don't know why I just thought of this one, but this video makes me laugh so hard every time, like to the point of uncontrollably. Just I can't deal with it. But it's like a home shopping. It's like I don't even know what the show is.
Oh yes, I know what you're talking about.
The guy has this little like cylinder that it's like I guess it goes in an old like phonograph. So it's on a record, but it's like a black cylinder. You put it you put it in the thing. And it reads the grooves and plays the music. And he's literally like, well, this is a one-of-a-kind, only one in existence. Like, he literally says something to that effect. And then the fucking thing just explodes in his hands. Like, he's not even doing anything. And it's like, bow. And it just explodes. And he goes, shit. And the young dude's like, well, that happens sometimes. And you're like, no, it doesn't. It literally doesn't happen. But the thing is, he moments before literally says, like, this is the only one of these in existence. It's a priceless fucking thing.
Like Antique Roadshow.
Just,
You've hit the jackpot, bud. Kabam. Oh, it's over.
Explodes in his hand. Like, it's an old man holding it, and he doesn't drop it and break it. That's the part.
It's just
and that's the funniest part.
implodes. Yeah.
It just goes.
You need like Tommy Boy. What'd you do?
And he almost says fuck. He's like, and then he just goes, well, shit. And she, like, his whole life just, dude, it's so good. Oh man, have you seen the ladder infomercial?
Yes.
Dude,
Where the
he's
dude's like oh, man.
he just eats the fucking thing. But it's like there's so many foreshadowing moments.
You can see that it's going to happen immediately. If you've ever operated a ladder before, you know that this is going way bad.
And that ladder was stupid as fuck. It was like fold it in half.
Yeah, and fucking balance on the end of it. It's fine, and it's not stable at all. There's nothing stable about
it.
it.
Like, I got it locked in, and then it's like
it clearly starts to like bend in the middle.
But before that, he like pushes it, and it clicks again, and he goes, "Oh, now it's locked." And then he gets up on it, and it goes clack. He goes, "Well, now it is." And you're like, "Dude,
it ain't never been locked, bro."
The Lord's trying to tell you,
get out of there, bro.
Not
it's
to
a
do
trap.
this. And then he just like buckles and folds in half backwards, and the lady's like, "Oh my god." Because the whole time she's even like, "Don't fucking do this, man.
Get off. Get out of there."
Oh man, there's some pretty good.
I'm sorry.
Did you light it up in
I
here?
apologize.
It's Josh's blue ass in the podcast
Yeah,
here.
it's not good. Oh my god.
Oh wow.
Oh no.
Okay. Jesus, man.
I laughed so hard I farted.
Yeah. Well. No, don't wave it. Don't wave it over here, man.
Keep it, bro.
You gotta get some.
You gotta own that.
Oh my Jesus.
You gotta own it.
Really, man? My mouth was open.
Got pink eye.
Yeah. That's how pink eye happens.
Yeah.
Double pink eye.
Double.
Cloud.
That's a
Dude,
double
that's
pink eye.
bad.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
Guys, if you're...
That's asparagus fart.
Guts are rotten, bro.
Sometimes you stop being friends with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is not one of those times though.
Oh my god, dude.
Should be.
Yeah,
What'd
I'm
you think
not.
about it?
I won't allow it.
What'd you do, dumbass?
That's definitely not ketchup.
Yeah, no, that ain't ketchup, y'all.
So there's some that is really bad. I can't. I'm just living in it now. This is where we live now.
Look at me.
Whew. You know, it's like I'm trying to dodge it. I'm trying to like,
But it's a gas.
trying to really work through it.
Not a bullet.
Yeah.
Feels like it though.
There's so many good videos of that stuff. Like there's that one. Have you seen the one where it's like they're talking about some camera or some printer or something, and they have this picture and it's a butterfly. It's clearly a butterfly. There's nothing about it that's not a butterfly. And the guy, and I guess I don't know if he's reading off of a cue card, and he just doesn't know how to improv or whatever. And they put up the wrong picture, but it's a butterfly. And he goes, "Look at this horse." And you're like, and they're like, and then he's physically, it's not like it's on a green screen. He's physically in the room with this picture. And he's like, and then he starts like describing the horse. That's not, it's like this mane. And he's and he's like doing the hand gesture, like this horse, it's a beautiful horse.
Oh no.
Look, we're going to watch it whenever we get done with this. It's so good.
Power through it.
Look at this horse. I'm like, and the whole time you're like, is he fucking with us?
Like this is how strokes happen.
Yeah. And he goes into like vivid detail of a horse, and you're like, I
Speaking of strokes, I would listen to Free Beer and Hot Wings in the morning a lot on the way to work and while I'm at work for about an hour or so. I like their trivia section, that sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
But they bring up that lady that was on the news that had the stroke during the fucking newscast.
Oh, yeah.
And her heavy burtations and shit.
yeah.
That was insane, bro. And then it ended up being like something random, like it wasn't even a stroke. It
Yeah,
was like
it's some crazy like brain fart disease or something.
Yeah, it's
and she like
insane.
legitimately like jumbled her words so hard.
Dude. Have you seen him again? No. Dude.
She's talking about the weather, heavy burtations. And like she goes, and it's like a glitch in the Matrix, dude. It's so crazy.
And then she like, you could see like on her face when she realizes, oh my God,
Those
I'm
words
in
did
trouble.
not come
Like,
out right.
I'm
And then
saying words,
The
but they're
dudes
not
at the front were
happening.
like, well, "All right, Janice, thanks for your input." And it's like, what the fuck just happened?
That's one of my favorite things is the guys who have to like stay, they have to be It's kind of goes back to what we were talking about. How you got to be professional on the phone.
Yeah.
That's them. They're like, all right, Janice. And you know, as soon as they cut, they're like, this crazy bitch.
Yeah. they gotta stay hard in that Ron Burgundy, and it's like, okay, we got to get to a commercial because we got to make sure Janice is not dead.
Dude, speaking of which, I think my favorite infomercial blunder of all time. Do you know the sword one? Dude, it is the funniest. We're going to watch that one too. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. I say that all the time, but I mean it kind of.
I mostly mean it.
Until the next one.
Yeah. He's got. Do you not remember the guys that sold all the swords and shit all the time? And they'd be like, if you order now, you get 15
You get
knives.
999 knives for $27.
And they would always say, like, the swords that came with sheaths, but they would say sheaths.
Cheese.
14 sheaths.
It used to be called Cutlery Corner.
Yes.
When I was on third shift, and there'd be a guy on there, and he'd say, "Who's got them?"
Yeah. Yes. And I don't know if these are the same people, but it's the same style. And he has this katana or whatever. Well, I don't know swords, but he has a ninja-looking sword. And he's like, and he's talking about how badass the quality is. He's like, man, this thing's hard. And he hits it on the table. The fucking thing breaks. And then, like,
Stabs him.
Stabs the shit out of him.
No.
And he goes, oh! And he goes, it got me. It got me. He goes, it got me. And then he says, it got me, Odell. He says, Odell. He says, Odell, the tip of that just got me. And then he's mic'd up again. So he's like, he disappears. And then I guess it's Odell that shows up. And he goes, Odell comes in. He's like, and he looks hammered on whiskey. And he's like, folks, we might need emergency surgery in the studio.
Oh, no.
And the whole time he's like, it got me. It's so bad.
You can hear him off screen. Oh, damn, they got me again.
He's trying to stay cool, but you can tell he's like, fuck, I just stabbed the shit out of myself. Oh, man. Odell, it got me. Oh, man.
Jesus Christ. Sometimes you just don't know how to react to when you get stabbed in your gut.
No, that's not a common occurrence. You don't. That's uncharted waters, bud.
What do I do here? Oh, I just keep saying it got me until a paramedic shows up.
I cried on the microphone.
I've never done this, but I'm going to try to pull it up.
Oh,
and we're going to listen to it.
Oh, man.
Oh, it's going to be terrible sound quality for all you guys
awful.
there. But, oh, man. I'm just going to...
It got me.
It got me.
It got me.
Oh, yep. Sword Phil infomercial. First thing here. I think this is it.
1101-1816 is the item number on this one. And the nice thing about these practice katanas... Oh, that hurt. Oh, that hurt big time. A piece of that the tip just got me, Odell. Oh, that got me good. A piece of that tip just got me.
Odell shows up.
Right now, we may need emergency surgery in the studio.
In the studio.
Oh, he's so hammered.
I like how the infomercial keeps going.
Yeah. Folks, we might need emergency surgery in the studio.
In the studio.
Oh, man. Sorry. So, yeah, go watch Sword Phil. But he's, like, hitting the thing on the table.
Yeah.
Clack, clack.
Like
clack.
showing you how strong it is.
It got me. It's so good. Oh, man. So someone had to take that call.
Absolutely,
If they called
yes.
911. It got him. Yeah.
Firm, steady pressure. Don't lift it up to
Do
look.
not lift it up to look.
Do not take that blade out. Leave it
man.
in there.
So you left the excitement of 911 dispatle for the
IT world.
the exhilarating world of IT.
IT, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, very exhilarating, yes.
So we kind of talked about this before we started recording this, like the probably some choice either for family or just scheduling, and I think there's a lot of merit to, like, I used to be a bartender. I made pretty good money bartending, but it was like, 3 or 4 in the morning every day, when I worked or whatever. So it was like you get home, you don't get in bed until 5 or 6 in the morning. It was like, this was the whole thing. So for me, it wasn't a family thing, but it's just, you just want some like normalization of schedule and all that. So was that kind of what you did? Was just
what kind of the way it worked with me is it's crazy the personnel shortage they have there. So there was tons of overtime. You were kind of, I worked second shift, and you were kind of stuck. Like once you got into the place, it was completely based on seniority. So it's like once you're there, unless somebody leaves or dies, you're stuck.
I got you.
So I worked 2:30 to 11, the second shift, and never saw my family. Never, got to see my kids. Had weekdays off, so I maybe saw my family 4 hours a week.
Yeah, I got you.
So it just hit a point where I'm like, is what I'm doing here worth missing my kids growing up? So I was like, no, it's not.
Right.
And took a big pay cut, but now I'm working Monday through Friday, got weekends off, have some work at home time. So it's kind of like, you got to figure out, is it worth not seeing my family and not seeing my kids grow up to be here to do this? And for me, it wouldn't. I mean, I just kind of hit a point where I'm like, I think I've put my time in and done what I could do. So it's like,
do you do the thing where you miss what you did, or is it kind of just a?
Oh, I miss it every day.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought I was good at it. But I think sometimes you gotta really just sit down and look at what's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I made a ton of money there, and I knew what I was doing, and I was good at it. But then at the same time, it's like sometimes you gotta step outside of that comfort zone and not step out of that ledge and say, all right, I'm willing to take a risk and do something different to be able to be with my family.
Sure. Yeah, I think, like I said, even with my, stepping into a new job and getting out of the bar business was more, I don't have kids and anything like that, but it was just that trying to normalize the schedule and just be, like, now I can't imagine sleeping till, I used to sleep till 1 or 2 in the afternoon because I didn't go to bed till 6 or 7 in the morning, 5 or 6 in the morning, and then, go to work at, 4 or 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. Or later sometimes, but it was always just that cycle. And, you get used to it, and after a while, so it did take me time to get acclimated to the 9 to 5 world, but
I'm dealing with that too.
Yeah, but now it's like, oh, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
So now it's like, I just wake up early.
Yeah, and it doesn't require a family to make that change. A lot of times it's just age. As you age out of that lifestyle,
Oh, yeah.
you know what I mean? You tend to just, and that's not to say that there aren't older bartenders in the world, and really, really good older bartenders that just fall into that life and love it and never want to leave it. We had RC on, and I think he falls into that category where he just enjoys that lifestyle, and there's nothing wrong with that. But some people, it just is a grind for some people,
Yeah, that was what it was for me.
And the scheduling, and the problem is when you get older, the people in the bar stay the same age for the most part. Right. And so, you get a few older people here and there, but for the most part, it's people in their 20s. And so you have to make new friends if you continue to stay there, or just not see your friends ever. Right. Because the people that, as you get older, the people start to normalize their schedule. They start to normalize their life. They're doing stuff on weekends rather than on crazy-ass weekdays that you're off.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And so you're kind of missing out on your friend life in a lot of ways. And it has to be a really unique situation in which you have friends that are available during your schedule if you're working that crazy schedule.
Yeah, and that's what I ran into, too. It's like, you work 2:30 to 11. It's like,
that's the worst.
When do you even talk to people?
I would rather work third shift than work the second shift because.
But to bring it back to your point though, it was like second shift when I was in my 20s was awesome.
Yeah,
because when I worked at Walmart, I would work that was it like 2 to 11, and so.
You could party at night.
Yeah, and you could sleep in and still, get up at noon and still go to work.
But when you get older, all of the rest of the world operates in that daylight time, right? And so then when you're working while everybody else is out doing, and you're sleeping right up until you're working, you know what I mean? Which most people tend to do, right? And so you're asleep in the first part of the day where everybody else is at work. And then you're going to work as everybody else is starting to get off. And then you're partying at night when everybody else is asleep. And then you're going to bed while everybody else is getting up. And so it's the second shift is, it's basically the you know what I mean, communal thing. You don't get to hang out with the rest of the world effectively.
Yeah. And then that's basically retail. Is like you're going to work that shift. I mean, it just is. We both worked at the t-shirt shop for different times. I don't know if we ever worked together.
And I don't think we did. Yeah. I think I left, and then you took over when I left.
Yeah, but I worked there before even. Like, so it was like, and I kind of left and came back. Yeah, but that's the whole thing. Is like the mall didn't even open until 10 a.m.
10, yeah.
And I know you did. You just worked the whole thing.
Yeah, I was basically working 65 hours a week.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And I did that shift a lot, but usually it would be like I'd come in at 2 or 3 and just work till 9. That was just the thing, though. You work till 9 and then go to Barley's and hang out and whatever. And so
I got out of it shortly after my son was born, actually.
Yeah.
And then failed at doing my own t-shirt thing, and then went into the lawn business remodel for a few years and then with Adam's dad. And then, when the 08 bullshit happened, if you were in a remodeling business in 08, that shit did not go well.
Yeah, I bet.
Turns out. And then found my way into killing weeds. You know what I'm saying? That's effective.
Yeah, hey, it works.
Makes money. That's really what matters.
But yeah, so I think, because at the end of the day, like now I can't imagine working like till 10 or 11 at night.
Man, like, that would be depressing.
Or especially until 3 a.m. I'm like, no.
Boy.
Heck no.
Yeah, and I've been doing it for so long, working basically normal hours since I was 22, 23 years old, something like that. You know what I mean? And so, like, it's normal to me. I wake up, like this morning, it's a Sunday when we're recording this, hung out, at 11 o'clock last night, boy, I was done, homie. We had a get-together at my place, and I was done at 11. Everybody was like, dang. I was like, y'all got to get the fuck out. I'm old. Yeah. I can't do this. And then I woke up, you go to bed at 11 or 12, and at 6:55, I'm up. I tried to set my alarm for 8 to sleep another hour, and it was not happening. You just adjust to it.
Yeah, I haven't reached that adjustment level yet. I can sleep in. My kids won't let me, but I can sleep.
Those little shits.
I still got second shift sleep.
Yeah, I can't do it anymore. I'm up by, even if I stay up late or whatever, because I go to bed like 10 p.m. or whatever. And during the week I get up really early, but even when I sleep in, air quotes,
8 o'clock.
Yeah, pretty much 7:30, 8 o'clock. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, it's time to get up.
Let's do this.
Even if you want, you're like, I just would like to sleep another couple of hours. It just isn't happening most of the time, right?
So I like to get up and get it going. But yeah, man. Well.
Yeah, I think that was a good one, man.
Yeah,
I think we had a lot of fun.
Barrett, thank you for coming over, man.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil all the good stories because we might have him back on.
Sure. I definitely want to have have people come back through and talk. But you guys, thanks for listening. Check us out on social media as usual. I'm going to keep plugging that forever. Go watch some infomercial fails. Tell us about your favorites. It got me, oh man,
heavy birtations.
Too good. But yeah, check us out on social media. Just search the McRADcast on any of those, and YouTube. Like I said, in the future we will have some video. Hopefully, that's a goal. But thanks for listening. Once again, Barrett, thanks for coming by, and always remember to stay rad.